All right, what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning in on Spotify. Thanks for listening, however you're checking this podcast out. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, with my beautiful wife this Ramadan. Fifth day of Ramadan. Say hi, Boo.
Hi, everyone. I'm AKDI from Turkey.
From Turkey. Can you drop a good salam alaikum for the people this Ramadan?
Salam alaikum, everyone who is fasting this Ramadan. May it be easy for you and God help you and Allah help you. And yeah.
Right. She's not Muslim, but we're going to get her to take Shahada one day. One day, inshallah.
I told you, whenever Biden does it, I'll do it.
Okay. Anyway, this is episode 27 of our movie reviews. Today we're covering Poor Things, a 2023 film starring Emma Stone, directed by who? I don't know the director's name.
Okay, so the director... Okay, sorry. I don't have it. It's a Greek guy, and he also did like Dogtooth and The Lobster. And his name is Yorgos Lanthimos.
All right, awesome. So this film was interesting. We watched it last night. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It didn't feel like a 2 hour and 20-minute film, though. The pace is very fast. The cinematography is very interesting. The story is entertaining. And there are messages in this movie that are worth breaking down. Overall, how I felt about it was that it was interesting to look at, and it did keep me like engaged. But I really don't feel like I have a lot to comment on the story because the story is very on the nose feminist, like Barbie, and like some other movies that are made in mainstream media where they put these messages out. I don't feel like that's a problem, but I do feel like the way it's delivered, there's not a lot to dissect with it because it's so in front of you, and you either choose to accept it or not. But how did you feel after we watched the movie?
Like you said, like I agree with the stuff you say, but I do think like what makes this movie better than Barbie or separates it from Barbie is that I feel like the issues that they talk about, like related to feminism in this movie, are more relatable and they're more like they seem more like human struggles rather than only woman struggles at certain points. Not all of them, but yeah, I feel like this movie makes a better job of making those problems feel general and some of them relatable to men as well. And Barbie is just like, just feminism, objectification of women, etc., etc. But here there's also like that identity crisis or like societal pressures and rules and how people deal with them and see them. So yeah, I feel like it's not only a feminist movie, but it's more than that.
I feel like you could say this movie has bigger themes outside of feminism if you compare it to like a film like Forrest Gump. Like this is, Forrest Gump, but if he was very horny. It's the same story, like going through life or coming of age as a person mentally disabled as you explore and recount the events in your life. So I think you could see it that way. But overall, let's break down this story. So like the movie opens up with this girl like dancing in the house, and she's dancing kind of awkward and weird. She's a grown woman, but she's obviously, mentally disabled. We don't know what exactly her problem is. And there's a guy who has a disfigured face who comes up to her and hugs her, and she calls him God. Then they sit down at like this dinner table, and he burps a bubble into the air, and it explodes. And she's having like tantrums and stuff in the house. It all takes place in like the Victorian era, so they're wearing like the big puffy jackets and coats and dresses. And also in this mad scientist house, there are animals that are very strange, like a pig/chicken or like a goose mixed with a dog. Like, what did you think when the movie opened up and they were, creating this world?
Yeah, I mean, the first scene of the movie is like a woman on the London Bridge, right? And she jumps from the bridge, and then we see like this transition to the house. And like, yeah, when I saw like the burping scene and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like something magical, maybe there's going to be some creatures and stuff like that. And then, yeah, like when I first saw the house and stuff, it was just like intriguing because it was different. And I don't know, it was like, I was like, okay, like I'm interested, I'm engaged. Where is this going? What is up with his face? What is up with her and stuff?
Right. Speaking of the scene where the woman falls, by the way, the main character's name is Bella, played by Emma Stone, and she's the woman that we see trying to kill herself, jumping into the River Thames. And Wilhelm Dafoe plays the mad scientist whose name is Godwin, but his nickname is God. And yeah, at the beginning, I thought that might be where the movie was ending because sometimes they show the ending at the beginning, but that was actually something that happened earlier in her life that we'll cover. And I feel like the bubble scene was supposed to like show that this movie is going to have hints of magic. It's going to have pieces that take you out of reality to show you that this is a fable or, a fake story. And also with the animals that were crossbred and stuff like that, it blends this line between like science fiction and fantasy. Because obviously it's impossible to join a goose and a dog together. But what if we could? And what if it was walking around? Would you want to have that pet? And the whole design of the house and everything, it was, cartoonishly evil, cartoonishly, dilapidated. Like it was just a weird thing. It was a wild environment that they put in. And also how God's face is like disfigured. It's barely put together. He looks like, a pair of shoes that are falling apart. It's just little hints like that make you feel like, what exactly am I watching?
Okay. I mean, I didn't feel like the house was evil, but it was just like it had the mad scientist vibe, which was like also what God was, He was a mad scientist.
For me, because I didn't know where this movie was going, I thought God was going to be evil, and his creation was murderous. Because what do we see Bella do? Bella is like having tantrums. She's like stabbing the dead cadavers that Godwin is experimenting on. She's breaking things. So I thought this was going to be like a horror movie-ish, and his monster was going to kill people, or Godwin was going to kill people with his monster. I didn't know where it was going, so that's why I
Yeah.
felt the evil vibes at first.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the beginning, like Godwin is a bit, um, like a bad guy, but because like he's doing all these science experiments and he feels like selfish or just like superficial
Hmm.
in the beginning. But yeah, later on that changes a little bit. But overall, like the movie opens up interesting.
Right,
And then I
right.
guess we see like Godwin in a school and he's like, a medical like professor, teacher, something like that. And he's chopping up like some dead bodies and stuff. So we also know like he's a scholar, but he's not maybe really accepted because some of his students gossip about him, maybe because of the way he looks.
Yeah, they call him the monster. But there's one student there who has admiration for him, and that's Max McCandles, played by Rami Youssef. And as soon as I saw Rami, I thought of the show that he did on Hulu a few years ago, which I really liked. But I find it funny that so many Arabs get to play white people on TV. It was great. Like, you could be very Egyptian in one show, and the next thing you're an Irishman. Okay, we're supposed to believe it.
Okay. I mean, I don't think he was trying to disguise as a white man, but it was just like the time of the movie, like the setting of the movie that he has to dress a certain way and stuff. So, yeah,
All right. I just thought it would have been funny in the movie if, like, secretly he was like cooking like pigeon, or he was, listening to arabesque music but trying to hide it.
that
Like
would have been funny.
he was undercover white. Anyway, Max McCandles becomes like the assistant to Godwin. Godwin says, "I want you to help me monitor the experiment that I have at home." And McCandles idolizes God. Which is weird. Now that I said it, he idolizes God. He views him as a god, and he comes home and finds that his experiment is this beautiful retard, as he says, Bella, who, as soon as she meets him, she like stabs him in the eye, like pokes him in the eye or something. And so he's watching her hair grow, her fingernails grow, how many words she learns a day, because she's like mentally handicapped, and he doesn't know why. He's at first Max is like sort of disgusted with the God's experiment. He's like, "What did you do? What did you create?" and things like that. What did you think about Max's interactions with Bella at first and God's experiment?
Yeah, I think like he was first intrigued by like how beautiful she was for him, and then also like she was fascinated by the experiment because he was trying to understand like what was going on with her. And the more time he spent with her, he kind of developed this connection with the experiment, as they refer to Bella. And yeah, I think that's like it's kind of blurred the line between like scientific experiment and relationships, like what happens when we experiment with other human beings or creatures, even like animals and stuff like that, and how like that line can be easily blurred, and then you can develop a connection, which is like, of course, this is like a very, unethical experiment, but that's
Mhm.
what's happened in most of the history. A lot of the experiments were unethical, and yeah, basically that's how we got a lot of like information.
I'm gonna break this down. Number one, was Emma Stone that fine? Like that she was getting all these dudes just instantly fall in love with her? I don't think so. Like she's a good Minnesota six. I don't get why people are like falling over themselves trying to get to her in this movie. I don't know. What do you think? Or is it just a character? Are we just supposed to suspend belief and really believe people look at this girl and say, "Damn, that's a baddie"?
I mean, no, like it doesn't have to be. And maybe in that universe, in that time, she was considered like very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she was like an interesting person. She had like long hair and weird like sentences and stuff like that. So I think like her uniqueness also made her like beautiful as well, if that makes sense. But
I'm a,
it doesn't really matter, like.
I'm gonna take it a step further. I think one of the big reasons, and this is gonna be my theme throughout this review, one of the big reasons men were falling all over Bella is because they thought they found a woman who could easily be controlled because she is mentally handicapped or disabled. And so because she is not all there, she's more easily able to be manipulated or held under her wing, right? But the men that fall in love with her don't realize that the only man who had her under her wing was God, because God loved her like a father. Meanwhile, all these other men want something from her. That's how I'm gonna run with this.
Yeah, I mean, every guy that entered her life tried to control her or like prison her in some way. And I can understand, like from the surface, it looks like they can control her. But even God, like Godwin, wasn't able to control her.
Hmm.
But she just stayed loyal to him because he actually like cared about her, and
Hmm.
vice versa.
Right, right, right. Speaking of God, we should talk about who he is as a character because his our perception of him sort of changes throughout the movie, or at least mine. So at the beginning, we think he's just this evil mad scientist, but he got all of those scars and he burps bubbles because his father did horrible experiments to him. As the story continues, he dropped hints on what his life was as a young man, and his father like branded his balls like with a hot iron. His father like put his fingers in a brace or his thumb in a brace to make sure it didn't grow. His father like removed glands and organs in his body just to see what would happen because his father was a mad scientist and he sacrificed his son to just test experiments. And this is a tradition Godwin now carries on to the next generation. And you would think, okay, this is like abuse because nobody would say, a pedophile who takes care of the child they molest is a good person. He is, raising, well, we didn't cover that yet, but he is doing sort of the same things to Bella in a way. So I don't know. How do you feel about Godwin as a character? Hero, villain, somewhere in between? Like, what do you think?
I don't think he's a hero or a villain, honestly. Like maybe like in a sense. I mean, it's interesting like how they depicted him as a god, but he basically worships science, and he doesn't even blame his father for any of the stuff that he did because he was like conditioned that way from childhood, from when he was a baby. So like I don't know, like I don't think he was a villain, but he was somewhere in between, or he was just like human, just sort of trapped in one way of living, and he just, I don't know, went through with that throughout his life.
I'm going to give my opinion. At first, I thought he was a villain, but I believe he changed later into a hero. And this is after I got some other information in the story. So moving on, essentially, Max McCandles and Godwin and Bella go outside. Bella has never been outside before, so they go on a trip. And Bella really wants to explore more outside, and that's the beginning of her wanting to, be away from Godwin for the first time in her life. And Max McCandles comes back to the house, and he discovers, that Godwin basically found this dead woman who recently just died, so her body was still warm, and she was pregnant. He removes the baby that was inside of her belly, takes out the baby's brain, and puts it in Bella's brain. And that's how Bella is the way she is. She's a bit off because it's not actually her, it's her child inside of the mother's body. Now, I'll say this, I think Godwin is a hero in general because throughout the movie, he does this. He resurrects women who killed themselves. And I think he is fighting against femicide by bringing back to life women who unjustly took their own lives or had their lives taken from them. We don't know exactly the reason why Bella, wanted to kill herself, like the exact reason, or why the other woman that Godwin resurrects later in this movie come back to life. But I do think there was a reason he didn't resurrect any men. So I'm going to say he's a hero.
Okay, maybe a little bit, but if you look at it in a general view, do we, like, as humans, should we have the right to, like, just save whoever we want and create different, like, things and then claim them, sort of? Because that's what he did, or at least he tried to do. Like, he tried to sort of trap her and, not let her go outside at the beginning and stuff like that. So, like, who is he to have that power, against women? But I get, like, the theme of it kind of is, like, okay and heroic, but at the end, it's kind of also, like, inhumane.
I guess that brings up the big question. If we did have the technology to bring people back to life, should we do it? And we've covered this in several other movies, like The Skin I Live In, like Jurassic Park. If man has the ability to do anything, should he do everything? And that's a big question. I would say no. I don't think bringing people back to life is ethical or right. But in this case, when we're talking about societies where young women are killed unjustly or take their own lives, then maybe they do need a second chance at life. There's always, the opportunity for them to get it right or for them to be free away from the system that made them, want to die or be killed. That's what I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I don't think, like, Godwin's initial, like, intention was to, like, avenge females' freedom or, like, whatever. Like, I don't think that's where his heart was. So, like, and then again, once he did it, also, it's like there's no limit to man's, like, want or thirst for power. Or when, like, we create something as humans, we want to claim them, we want to take, we want our names to be out there in the history and stuff like that. So I think that's why, like, we shouldn't be able to, like, bring people back from the dead, because we're going to be feeling entitled.
I'll just say this, Godwin never explicitly says his motivations for why he does it, other than it's science. I'm trying to advance science. But I would say that he possibly does it for some feminist reason because we only see him resurrect women. We see him be very kind to Bella. He is not sleeping with Bella because primarily he doesn't have a penis, or his penis would take an extreme amount of work to get up. And also, he loves her like a father, right? And we have only seen him be generally nice to the people around him, even the people that challenge him. He deals with Max in a kind way, deals with Bella generally kindly, and everybody else too. And yeah, so I would say, I just got to put two and two together. You keep bringing women back to life. You must love these broads. You must love them. Right.
Maybe, or maybe, like, he thought that women were, like, it could also be societal too, because maybe it was, like, mostly women who committed suicide, who jumped from the bridge or whatever. And like, obviously, yes, there were men that he was, like, examining, but they were all, like, dead bodies, and he was just dissecting them and not bringing them back to life. So maybe there's a feminist motivation somewhere in there, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Moving on in the story. So basically, Max is propositioned by Godwin to marry Bella because Godwin says, I see how you look at Bella. There's some chemistry there. You must like her. You're attracted to her. And I suggest you get married. Meanwhile, at the same time, Bella has now discovered masturbation and sexual pleasure. And so she starts touching herself. She's sitting at the kitchen table and she grabs a banana, a cucumber, and starts inserting it inside of her. And she starts to come. And then the maid comes and Bella, like, tries to grab at her cooch. She says, I know why you're always sad and mean looking. You haven't had a good fun time. Here, I'll show you. And so Bella tries to make her come, and the maid says to Godwin, she tried to grab my hairy business. And Max McCandles says, Bella, don't do that. This is polite society. And this is the part of the movie where there's always this push to try to tame Bella. Like, they always tell her, don't say this, don't do this. This is polite society. You can't act this way. What did you think about, those two parts of the movie?
Yeah, it was very interesting. And, like, we talked a little bit about this last night after the movie, and we were talking about, like, okay, so when we discovered how to masturbate or how we can get joy out of ourselves, we didn't, like, go out grabbing bananas from the dinner table and stuff like that. And like, here, because we were raised by a society and we were conditioned from the moment that we're born, like, sex and sexuality is taboo. So automatically it became like something that was a bit shameful or something that we need to hide, even when we did it as teenagers and stuff. And here, like we see, because Bella is not living in a normal society. She's like sort of isolated from everything. She's like, well, this is something that brings me joy. So like, why can't I do it all the time? Why can't I do it in front of other people or share it with other people and stuff like that? Which is like, sort of very animalistic feeling, but also very natural. Like, the way that they showed it in the movie was like very innocent, and it didn't feel like filthy or anything like that. It was like enjoying a bowl of chocolate ice cream or something, because she was happy doing it basically, and she was trying to discover it. So I just thought that was interesting, like how society shapes even our personal experiences without us being conscious about it.
I would disagree about the part that it felt innocent or just childish, because number one, inserting fruit inside of you to me seems naturally gross. Like putting cucumbers, bananas, bell peppers, whatever in you seems nasty. Plus, also Bella was sort of a nasty girl, like up to that point in the movie. I started to like Bella more as the movie progressed, but I saw her like stabbing people in the eyes. She killed a frog in between Max's hand. She was very like mean, and I know that's not like her doing. She doesn't know what she's doing because she's infantile in the mind. But I didn't know where this movie was going, so I thought maybe she was going to start masturbating and then start becoming like a sexual demon, like killing people during sex. I don't know. So I felt some revulsion.
I mean, yeah, but like you said, she had a child's mind, and kids are like that. Like babies are like that. If you think about babies who are just learning to like eat and stuff, they squish everything, they get dirty all the time, they fall over all the time. And the only difference was that her body was different. And
Right.
people also treated her like she was an adult, really. And like they treated her like an adult who was like mentally, challenged, and not like a child entirely, because she looked like a fully grown woman.
But see, this is where I think the movie hoodwinks us and tricks us into letting this girl skate away with so many bad things. Because when I was a kid, yes, I killed insects, right? I see a cricket, maybe I'll step on it. I see ants, maybe I pour like hot water in the ant pile or something like that. But I've never killed a frog. I've never like stabbed a snake or something like that. I wasn't, violent. So I think the movie is, letting this girl get away with so much because we say, oh, she's a child. But actually, if your brother, who was younger, was killing frogs with his bare hands, would you say that's kind of disturbed? Or any child was, killing people, wouldn't you say that's disturbed?
Yes, I mean that is the start, but we have to remember she's not like a regular child, and also she grew up in this like laboratory. Like there's a room where Godwin like does experiments on cadavers, and she grew up like just seeing that, him dissecting people, animals. Probably she saw like the animals that he did operations on and stuff like that. So we have to like remember that she grew up seeing that, and if you grew up seeing that, then that sort of becomes normal. If that makes sense, I don't know.
I think Bella had a lot of white privilege. Like only a white woman can get to act retarded throughout an entire movie, and everybody falls over trying to get to her. And on top of that, we excuse all of her bad behavior because she's white. If Bella was black in this movie, there would be no, Bella, will you marry me? No, she's gonna marry me. There would be none of that. There would be
Yeah, I
none of
mean,
that.
up until to the point where she was only in the house,
Hmm.
she can't have white privilege because she's not in the society.
No, but she has white privilege when people from society interact with her. When they enter into the house and see this quote unquote beautiful white woman who's a Illinois five, she's they instantly say, "Oh, she's gorgeous. I want to marry her," and stuff like that. And then when they find out she's sexually, aroused and liberated, they're like, "Oh, even more turned on by that." You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but for most of, I'm just saying that like for the most part, she was only interacting with three people: Godwin, Maid, and Max. And then like later she interacted with another person. But even if that was so, like she wasn't like doing it on purpose, because it was those people who were carrying on that white privilege to her, because she didn't know what white privilege or white was even,
But that's the
probably.
thing. You don't have to know that you have it to get it. That's what white privilege is. You don't have to even be aware of the term, the phrase, the idea. You just get treated better because you're a good looking white woman who, in general, people want to be around. And that's what Bella had. If,
I agree with that when she went out to the world, but I'm just saying I feel like she didn't have that when she was stuck in prison in the house.
okay, if Bella was a black woman and all these guys came into to the house and they saw this retarded black girl breaking things, smacking things, and stuff like that, yeah, they would probably smash. But there would be no, I want to marry her. I will fight you, sir, to marry black Bella. Black Down syndrome Bella, will you be my bride? There will be none of that.
I think Godwin will still like treat her the same, and also Max would treat her the same. I don't know about like the other guy, Letterman, Duncan.
Duncan.
I don't know about him. Yeah, he might be a racist.
No, no,
But
like
yeah,
this movie does not have race in it at all. Like it's
yeah,
in this fantasy world where all the other issues of society, race, sexism, classism, all of them can be brought up, but racism isn't at all. So we're not, that's not a part of the text. But I'm saying in the audience's view, we're allowing this white woman to get away with so much because I believe she's white. Like
yeah.
so, we're seeing this white woman act this way, and we say, "Oh, she just has a child's mind." Don't you remember when you were a kid and you killed frogs too? Come on, didn't we all like just run around stabbing people and like smashing things on the floor when we didn't get our way? No, no, like come on, that's how I'm
Okay,
feeling.
okay, Simon.
I got to keep
Okay,
it real. I got to keep it real. This is a black perspective on this very white movie.
okay.
All right,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So yeah, continuing on. So Max agrees to marry Bella, and he says like she has to want to marry me as well, and she says okay. But then they have to draw like a contract or something like that because Godwin wants Max to stay in the house with them and like just dedicate his life being in the house and to Bella and things like that. So there's this lawyer that they hire for the contract, and the lawyer is like intrigued, and he's saying like, I have to see this woman who inspired this contract. Like, who would agree to be imprisoned in the house to be with a woman? And he goes wandering around the house, and he finds Bella, and he basically like grabs her by the pussy. And since Bella is also discovering her sexuality, she's like very much intrigued. And yeah, he basically climbs up to her window one day, and he says like, come away with me, and I'll take you and I'll show you the world, and we'll have so much fun, and I'll pleasure you and things like that. And she says yes. And she like, because she's so naive and stuff, she goes to Godwin and says, I'm gonna escape. And Godwin is like, no, you're not, like you can't go anywhere. But eventually she's like, you can't tell me what to do, I have to go. And yeah, she also says to Max that she's gonna marry him eventually, but first she has to go and experience the world. And they go to Lisbon, Portugal together.
Mm, mm. By the way, the guy who plays Duncan, the man who sweeps Bella off of her feet and takes her to Portugal, is played by what's his name, Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. The entire time, I could not help but see the Hulk. I'm sorry, but if you're in the MCU, you got to take like a good 10 years off cinema because people got to like forget your face the entire time. The entire time, I was thinking he's going to turn green and just destroy her pussy. So yeah. Other than
Okay.
that, the
Yeah.
movie. At this point, I was like, this is taking an interesting turn. I thought the movie was going to be like a 2 hour slog in the house, but to see her go out and venture into the world, and they take us to Portugal, which is like totally opposite than London. Like up to this point in the movie, the entire movie was in black and white. But when they go to Portugal, everything is in multicolor. It's very vibrant, very yellow, blue, green, everything like that. And they're in Portugal eating like the egg pastries and drinking Porto wine and stuff like that. And it's a much different feel to the movie than the London scenes. And everything's back in color. And she's having wild sex all throughout the house. She fights Max to get her freedom, and Godwin helps her. He puts money in her pocket to help her go, showing that Godwin, let her go. Like, Godwin followed the number one player rule. If you let them go, they'll always return. They'll always come back. You feel me?
Now, I
So
want to talk about like because what was interesting also like in this movie we had these two characters that wanted to marry Bella, but they were completely opposites. Like Duncan was this guy who was driven with his sexuality. He had many lovers. He didn't really care about any woman that deeply. He doesn't want to settle down, and he sexualizes women and things like that. And where like Max is this guy who's trying to be respectful, and he wants to like fight for Bella, and he tells Bella that like he only wants you for your sexuality and things like that. And he's like the good guy, and there's the bad guy,
mhm, mhm.
which was interesting. What did you think about those two characters?
I thought Duncan had a good host sense. He knew she wanted to have a hot girl summer, and Duncan is supposed to represent, like you said, the bad guys, the players, the as women now today say, incorrectly taking a term, fuckboy. He's the prototypical Victorian fuckboy, and Max, on the other hand, is the nice guy who can never seem to get the girl. And yeah, I thought it was interesting how they used those two characters and the journey she went on with those two characters. Even though throughout the movie we see her more with Duncan, because with Duncan they're able to explore more of the negative aspects of men.
Yeah, definitely. So
But
yeah, I mean,
if you had to smash, Duncan or Max?
I don't know. It's hard because Duncan says like no one will give you this same pleasure as I will because most of the time sex is disappointing, and Bella doesn't know that because she's having the time of her life with Duncan, just like fucking everywhere around the house.
Furious jumping.
Furious jumping, yes. And Max is like, he's the scientist, he's smart, he's nerdy, kind of my type, but then he gives small dick vibes. So I don't know.
Okay.
Hard. If you're asking like marrying, I would probably choose Max, but if it's having fun, I would probably go with Duncan like Bella did.
What did you think of the sex scenes in this movie? Because I feel like the sex scenes were done fairly well. There was a variety of positions. There was a variety of angles. The moan seemed believable. This should definitely be a part of any movie review with the sex scene. We have to do an analysis of the sex scenes. And I want to say, Duncan's stroke game from the back is very proficient. Seems like it hits the right spot, not too deep, not tapping the cervix. Seems like he's doing right angles.
Okay, wow. Okay. Yeah, they were good. It was I couldn't help but think like, okay, he's actually like having sex with a child a little bit, but also like a woman. So, but it didn't feel like gross because we saw like she looked like a woman, so it didn't feel gross. But in the back of my head, I was thinking that when like they were showing all the sex scenes. But yeah, I mean, it looked like it was pure pleasure.
hmm hmm Yeah, yeah, definitely. She was having a lot of fun, and I think this is the part of the movie that might trigger some men. And when I say some, I mean a very small amount of men who might be into that red pill manosphere space. They might say, "Oh, this is what women actually want. They want to be, free hoes. They want to just, be super slutty in their younger years. They don't want to be settled down, and then they want to come back and be with the nice guy." And this is, a common talking point those people make. It's not one that I believe in or one I make, but I think this might be a part where some people in the movie might check out mentally and be like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy it for the film rather than the story is trying to tell or the message is trying to give. Because this is what a lot of some men, think that women are actually like. They just want to be slutty.
I think like for me, I felt like because her brain was like adapting to her body, I guess like very rapidly. Like the first time we met her, she was a child, and then like the part in Portugal, and after she discovered her sexuality, that was like her teenage years. So it was sort of understandable why she only wanted to have sex and just only wanted pleasure. She wanted to eat and stuff like that. But then like later, after like the cruise ship, during the cruise ship part, we kind of see her becoming like a young adult. Getting pleasure and satisfaction from different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, like after Paris, when she turns back and stuff, we see her like being a more adult, like just chasing sort of like those more vocational things, I guess, or philosophical stuff and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I saw it, because it's not like, yes, in that part she values sexuality a lot, but we don't see that play out later in the movie as
Right,
much.
right,
Like she
right.
does have sex, but she doesn't get that much pleasure out of it.
Right. Yeah, I think her discovering her sexual pleasure is like, how we are as children. We discover the basis things that make us happy. Cartoons, games. Then when we hit puberty, oh, if I touch myself this way, I'll feel better and stuff like that. And for any guys who might be looking at this movie and saying, oh, this is a commentary on how women actually are or what they actually want, I just want to tell all those guys real quick, a woman is not a slut just because she like sleeps with one guy or 100 guys during her college years or 20s or 30s, whenever, right? Because we as men, we do the same thing or we want to do the same thing. So we can't expect that double standard, right? And, there are other things that women want to do besides just have sex. She, as you just said, Acti, she discovered pleasure in other things, in philosophy, in making friends, in dancing, in alcohol, in learning and reading, and different things like that. So there's many parts to a human, and let's just not focus on the part where she just got banged out by Duncan in a Porto in a Porto hotel room. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right. Guys, listen to my husband.
All right. And as for the part about her having a child brain, it did feel weird as the audience because we know that's a child's brain, but I feel like you would have to really take a step back and analyze that because we see a human, right? Rather than a child, getting banged out. Pause. Oh, that's so horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a debate about this last night. It is, rape if somebody does sleep with somebody underage, physically underage and age-wise, But should it be the same for somebody who's mentally handicapped? Like if I'm talking to a girl who's on the spectrum and she's autistic or has Down syndrome and I lay with her, is that not the same because they might lack the decision-making capabilities that a normal, quote unquote, adult might be able to have?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, but I'm conflicted about it because, like you said, they might be lacking certain things, or they might be manipulated into thinking a certain way, and that's actually like how most child abuse, happen, because those adults like know how to trick children into thinking like they're not doing anything bad to them and stuff like that. And it's kind of like the same. It might be the same with mentally challenged people, but yeah, it's like if you take away that from them, then how are you supposed to, have their freedom to be with whoever they want, have sexual relationships with whoever they want, and stuff like that. So it's like a thin line between protection and freedom.
Right. I want to say first and foremost, it would be very uncommon for somebody to be attracted to somebody who is mentally not fully formed, like for lack of a better word, a retarded person. That's bad to say. I mean,
Disabled.
disabled, mentally disabled person. Thank you, Acti. It might be very hard, but there has to be some point where the control of a human's life has to be relinquished by the state or society, right? Like we say 18 is the age when somebody is now able to make choices. But 18 really is no different than 17. It is sort of an arbitrary line that we make because in different countries around the world, the age of consent is different. Now, I do think you should follow the age of consent in whatever country you're in. And in general, just common sense, you shouldn't be dating or marrying people that are way, way different in age, right? Like depending on where you are in life, right? If you're 40, dating somebody 30 might be okay. But if you're 30, dating somebody 19 or 20, I feel like you're in totally different stages. So I think there has to be a point where, even a person who is mentally disabled should be able to, be free and have the forces of the world work on them however they do, right? Because we can't just continue to police people all of their lives. So I would say it's not abuse or not, anything negative. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I mean, maybe like the education, like, yes, but it's the thing, like, for us to, like, just, yeah, not control their body, I feel like there should be, like, a mass education of people, both who are, like, mentally challenged and also for regular people, We should be, like, we should know how to ask for consent, how to look for signs and stuff like that. So there should be, like, education of all people in this topic. And because there isn't enough, there's a higher risk that it might be abuse or, yeah.
Well, that's going to be hard. Imagine teaching somebody mentally disabled that certain dick is bad. This dick is old enough for you. This dick is not.
No, not teaching certain dick is bad, but just teaching them how to protect their like themselves, or
Right,
how to have other, like, how to respond to other people when it comes to their like personal space and things like that.
right, right, right. All right. Well, let's move on in the story. Do you want to pick it
Okay.
up?
Yeah, so yeah, basically, so they're in Portugal, and then one day, like sex 5 times or something. Duncan is tired and he goes to sleep, and Bella goes out to the streets of Portugal, and she does like whatever she wants. She sees different things, like a lady singing and a couple fighting and stuff like that. So she's just like discovering. She's like a kid here, you know. And then yeah, later she comes back, and Duncan is sort of like mad at her. Because he's like, "Where have you been?" But then they go out to dinner with like Duncan's friends, and she's acting like the way she is, and spitting out like the bad food, and she's not being like, you know, polite according to the society. And Duncan gets like mad, but she's and tells her that like she has to say delighted, delighted, and you know, these certain phrases that are acceptable. And that kind of backfires on him and stuff like that. Like she doesn't want to conform to this etiquette of rich people. And yeah, I guess like here Duncan just accepts the fact that it's might not really ever happen.
Yeah, that scene where she's like forced to conform for that moment is very relatable to everybody because we can remember a time when you're told to act a certain way and you're kind of made fun of by people around you, or you're scolded by your parents to say this or act like that. So it's very relatable at that time. I also want to go back to that scene where she was walking around the city in Portugal and she sees this beautiful scenery, like when she walks up some tower and then she throws up and just walks away, because that was one of the most beautiful scenes of how the scenery was, but also strange because how she threw up and then just sort of like ambled away like a like a robot. And I don't know if she threw up because of what she saw or because she got drunk. But yeah, maybe that scene was also telling us that what is naturally beautiful is not what we naturally feel. Or what we think is beautiful is not what we naturally feel. She saw that and said, "Ew, that's gross." But the singing lady, that's cool. The fighting, that was cool. Or whatever she thought was naturally cool, she was attracted to. But the stuff that we might think is naturally beautiful, she said, "No, not for me." That's how I'm interpreting that scene. The throw up.
I thought she threw up because she ate too many of those like egg tarts or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because earlier Duncan says like, no, you can't eat more than one because it will be too much. And then
Mm-hmm.
she ate like 5 of them, and then yeah, so, like she threw up. Which again, like you know, us like our like you said, parents telling us some things are bad, but sometimes we need to experience them ourselves and then learn our lessons, and we won't do it again probably. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like it's like touching fire
Right.
and getting burnt, and then you won't do it again.
Right, exactly. So if she threw up the egg tarts because she ate too many, then I think that goes hand in hand with the scene at the dinner table where she's forced to conform. Like we're forced to conform sometimes and we don't know the reason why. But you and I had this conversation last night. Like there is a reason for politeness. There is a reason for etiquette because it's how we're able to make negotiations and deals and talk to people and get to some sort of agreement about things. Right. Like if Putin and Zelensky were sitting at our dinner table and Putin like threw up the goulash that Zelensky served him, not because it was poisonous, but because it was disgusting. The war would continue on because the disrespect would be intolerable. And so maybe she doesn't see the reason for politeness, but she saw the reason that Duncan told her, don't eat too many of those egg tarts because it will make you sick. So, like you said, our parents tell us something, and sometimes, there's no reason for it, but there also is sometimes a good reason for it, depending on the circumstances or what they say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like thinking about today's world, like where it's more like multinational, and like you can go anywhere, and there's a woke culture and things like that. So yeah, like you do have to have certain politeness to yourself. So maybe like when you're with someone that you don't really know, you don't know what would offend them or what would be considered rude and things like that. So yeah, like in the essence, you just have to be like a nice person. And but I can also see why some politeness rules and stuff like that kind of don't make sense,
Hmm.
and how some people really appreciate honesty, like
Hmm.
those people on the cruise ship. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, we will. We will. But moving on with the story, what happens next?
Yeah, so Duncan is kind of like getting more angrier and angrier because Bella is like sort of running around freely. You know, she goes out to like this bar and she drinks, and then they come back to the house, and there. Oh, sorry. Before that, also like when she comes back from the pub, they're in the hotel lobby or something, and there's this lady that comes up to them and tells Bella that she hasn't seen her in such a long time. But Bella is like, I don't know what you're talking about. She calls Bella like Victoria or something. I forgot. And Bella says like, I'm Bella and I don't know what you're talking about. So she goes away. And yeah, they go back to the room and they start like having sex. But then Duncan like sees that she got her thighs tattooed because some guy told her something. It's like there's like a story behind it, and he gets like even more upset because he kind of figures that another guy was with her, and he just can't control her, so he gets upset about the whole situation. There's also like the dancing scene where they're like in the restaurant again and they start to dance, which was also like kind of really silly because they weren't dancing like a normal dance. It was like made up, funky, freaky dance, very like sort of childish, and that was like cool. I thought, and then also there, Bella wants to leave with these other guys, a girl and a guy that wants to like go and dance, and Duncan attacks them as well. So overall, he's just like trying to keep her under control, but
Hmm.
Bella is curious and intrigued by everything that's going around her,
Hmm.
and she just like naturally leans towards them without even thinking about it.
Right. I really liked the dance scene in the movie because this is the part that made me think, okay, are what we watching or is what we're watching, actually real, or is this from the mind and somewhat projection or perspective of Bella? Because going back to when she first made it to Portugal, like the streetcars were like flying in the air, and there were some parts of the scenery of the city that made you feel like you were in like a sci-fi movie. And then when she's dancing at this party, the music is strange because they're playing all these instruments that don't exist in real life. Like there's a man pressing a pedal to make some strange clunking sound and weird octaves in the music, so it sounded very obtuse, like as if a child was trying to like play the piano and they don't know a scale or anything. And the way they were dancing, like you said, was very odd. It was like they were crumping and river dancing and waltzing while also doing like hip hop moves. It was one of the most interesting scenes. We were talking about this last night, how white Americans, at least in my opinion, like they take their European heritage and like twist it and distort it and remix it all the time. And I just wish like some black directors did the same thing with like African films. Like you brought up Black Panther, but that was like Afrofuturism in like a positive way. But I want to see it in like a bizarro type of way, and that's what I really liked about that scene. But also it made me question the narrative of this movie because earlier Duncan was like, "We need to follow polite society," and then the next thing you know, he's like semi twerking on the dance floor and being led by Bella, in a waltz. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, sometimes I went through that too. Like, is this what Bella sees or is this what we're seeing? And they also like sometimes use different camera angles, like the fisheye and stuff like that. So
Mm.
it made it feel like even more maybe we're like in the mind of Bella.
Hmm.
But yeah, I also was thinking like, yeah, it's like this weird time period where like the past and the future is kind of like connected in some way.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and also speaking of the camera angles, there's a lot of fisheye lenses, looking glass shots, different times when the movie goes from in color to black and white. So I really have to give it up to this movie for its cinematography. The story, I feel like, is not that compelling because once we see Bella going on this hero's journey, that's when the Forrest Gump comparison gets brought up again. But this is a very, very mannish, very horny Forrest Gump who's, constantly trying to come, like letting people eat her coochie and stuff like that. Oh man, it was wild. It was wild. Pick it up.
Okay, so yeah, so Duncan sees that the only way to control Bella is to go on a cruise. So he takes her on a cruise, and she wakes up in a ship, and she's mad at Duncan because she's like, okay, so you're trying to like trap me in here, so I don't do anything. And basically, yeah, they have like this little argument, and she tries to like get away from him, and she like openly says that like I don't think I'm getting enough pleasure out of like our relationship anymore. And she's like just very brutal about everything that she's feeling. She says it. And Duncan is like, I've never felt this way about you. I want to marry you, be with me, and things like that. But Bella is like, no, I don't think that's good for me.
Mm,
And which was like kind of funny. And then
mm,
also in the boat, she meets like these two characters. She goes up to them and she likes this like lady's hair and wants to touch it. And she starts talking to them. And they seem to not mind the way that Bella is speaking.
mm.
She's openly and she says like, oh, I'm here with a guy and I enjoy his penis and stuff like that. And, and the lady's like, oh, I haven't had sex for 20 years. And they like start talking about weird stuff. And there's like another guy who's like a cynic. That's how
Mm,
he introduced himself.
mm.
What was his name? He's played
Harry.
by Jared Carmichael.
Harry.
Harry, yes, Harry. And then lady is Martha.
Mm,
So yeah, she kind of develops this friendship with them because they like her and she likes them. And they start teaching her, like they start talking to her about philosophy, society, politics, and they start giving her books. And so she kind of becomes like more interested in, this other thing. Meanwhile, back in London, um, Godwin and Max make another person like Bella. They take another dead girl's body and they put another brain into her. And they miss Bella, but they are like, we have to keep on doing this because we're scientists. And they're struggling to connect with this new experiment that they are doing. And they
mm.
sort of miss Bella. And Bella is only like writing them postcards with weird sentences on them.
Yeah, I really thought it was interesting how they brought out the other girl. And when they brought her up, it made me think, okay, what is Godwin doing? And what is the movie trying to say? Because I'm always analyzing movies like, what are they trying to tell us? And the fact that Godwin brought up another girl, I felt like on one hand, he was trying to make another wife for Max because maybe he felt like Bella would never return. And Max, because he's been such a good guy, why not, marry him to one of his creations? And I think that was also part of Godwin's experiment too. Can I make a woman for a man? Right. And yeah, I didn't know exactly how to feel about that. What did you think?
I mean, I just thought that they were trying to get over Bella and they were trying to prove to themselves that she was just an experiment.
Hmm.
And, we have to set the experiment free or something like that. But they
Hmm.
didn't realize that they actually had very deep connections with Bella. And
Hmm.
it was just like sort of a denial thing that they were going through. That's what I felt like.
Yeah, yeah. Overall, though, I still am a fan of Godwin. Still a fan of Godwin. Not
Yeah.
going back. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So after that, once again, Bella is like, I don't want to be with you to Duncan. And Duncan is like, it's all that old lady. And he tries, like, he goes out and he tries to throw the lady into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And after that, I think, yeah, Bella goes into the room of Harry and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, you told me all these incredible things about society, politics, philosophy, and now I can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And they're discussing that, like, Bella is like, I want to believe that I'm good, and the world is good and people are good, but when I'm with Duncan, I can understand how people can be bad because he brings all the bad things in me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this like talk about, is the world good, are the people good or not good, they're evil, and he says, I'm going to show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they stop at Alexandria and they go out into this restaurant. And as they are eating, Harry says, "Come with me. I'm going to show you something." They go out to the balcony and see like a ditch, and people are like starving. There are dying babies there. People are just like in the worst condition ever. And Bella kind of has like this crisis. Like, she starts crying. She wants to throw herself out of the balcony, and Harry stops her. But yeah, she's like, I don't want to see this. The world is so bad. Why are they doing this? Why are they in this condition?
Mm-hmm.
So she has like that crisis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, two things I want to say about those characters that Bella met on the boat. When she met Martha, this is actually the only time, or the first time in the movie, where we see a woman who is not in the world of Godwin. And this is the first woman that she's actually interacting with who has her own life. And it's even more interesting that she's an older woman who has probably experienced all the things that Bella has. She's had a Duncan, she's been married, probably has children, and now she's at the end of her life where what's between her ears is more important than what's between her legs. And then, secondly, Gerard Carmichael, Harry, his character is the only black person in this movie. And it's interesting because he's I would say, an Afro pessimist, but without the uh, black, part of it. Like, he's a cynic. He's a person who probably sees the world negatively, even though this movie is non-racial and race isn't brought up in it at all. There is another black character in the movie who is a woman, and I'll bring her up later. But he's an Afro pessimist who sees the world cynically, probably because as a black person, we deal with a lot more negativity than others. And I found that interesting to use those two characters to introduce Bella to philosophy and to introduce Bella to different ideas and people who are progressive and stuff like that, which is eventually the path that she goes down later in life when she, leaves Duncan in the boat, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, what do you want to say about that?
I mean, I thought that was like an interesting theme where they had like optimism and realism or cynicism, like because he said he was a realist and also a cynic. But I thought it was interesting because this is also something I think about with everything that's going around in the world. Sometimes it's really hard to be an optimist and be you know, see the good in people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes being a realist kind of helps you cope with those things. You just say like it is what it is, and people do bad things, and everyone has to go through bad stuff, and et cetera, et cetera. So, but most of the times I am an optimistic person. I do want to see the good in people, and I want to treat people as best as I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through those things. And once again, like we see, I think Bella, transitioning to that sort of more pessimistic, more realistic, more cynic time of our lives also, because as teenagers we're like, we can do anything, we can change the world, world is good, people are good, it's fun. And then as we become adults, we get more cynical of the stuff that are around us, and we kind of like get used to people being bad and lying and doing bad things in life.
Yeah, I think the movie critiques Harry's worldview of cynicism because after Bella is shown the pit of suffering and stuff like that, she meets up with Harry later and she says, "Thank you for showing me that." And I think Harry says something like, "Don't thank me. Really, I just wanted to show you to hurt you." And I think what the movie is trying to say with that dialogue is that, cynicism, it's easy just to give up on this world and to focus on the negativity and only think badly. And when you are hurt like that by the world, you just want to share the pain with other people because misery loves company and it's infectious. But really, Harry probably dislikes that sort of cynicism too. And truly, if you are a cynic, then the thing that you shouldn't do is be alive. You should unalive yourself if you really think the world is so bad and is pointless and useless. So I think, even though it's sort of left on the edge, because the scene after that is, Duncan tries to kill Martha or something like that because he becomes jealous that Bella is hanging out with these two so often. I do think the movie is critiquing that sort of worldview, and especially how the movie ends too. It's an optimistic movie, and the messaging is optimistic. It's just that Bella had to learn about the evils of the world somehow, some way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that scene is also like a little metaphor of the whole theme also, because he's a realist, he's a cynist, and he does a bad thing. And essentially his view is that like humans are bad or the world is bad. And so he does a bad thing, which should be okay for him, right?
Hmm.
Because that's how people are. But then he's good enough and he cares enough to apologize for it and,
Hmm.
confess it as well. So
Hmm.
then it switches to like optimism.
Right, right,
So
right.
yeah, even like his actions reflect what you were saying.
Right, right. Yeah, and especially if you are a cynic, and I'm just going to take this a bit further, then we can leave it. If you are a cynic, the number one thing you should do is not be negative or evil. You should do the absolute opposite, because if you believe people are naturally evil and bad and stuff like that, showing people negativity and spreading bad things is just reinforcing your idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
I mean, yeah, if you give out negativity, then you're going to get that back. So, yeah.
right, right. But that's only if you're of that perspective. I don't share that perspective. You should show people evil, and that is not evil in and of itself, because you're spreading awareness and information.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, I
Right,
understand.
right. But his intention was to hurt her, therefore making the action evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So after that, Bella like comes to the cruise ship and she's crying. because she's so sad about like all those people that she saw. And Duncan like spent his time gambling, and he earned a bunch of money.
Hmm.
And he's like drunk asleep on the bed, and there's a bunch of money on the bed. So Bella gathers all the money she can find, and she goes out to the cruise ship to give them to the poor people, but the ship is about to leave. So there are two like guys who are working there, two like sailors. They say like, oh, the ship is leaving, like you can't go anywhere. But then they kind of like understand her naivety, so they tell her like, we'll give it to the poor people, just give it to us. And basically, yeah, they probably didn't give it to the poor people, obviously. And Bella's like, oh, you're so kind. And she gives them the money, and she goes back. And back in the room, Duncan is like accusing people of stealing his money. And then Bella comes and says, I took it, I gave it to the poor people. And and Duncan gets like very, very like angry. And yeah, basically that was all of their money. And the people on the ship tells them that they're going to be thrown out in the next stop, because now they can't afford this trip. And they're basically going to be like eating the scraps of the staff and things like that. So Duncan is like just ruined, and he's saying like, you ruined my life, Bella. And Bella doesn't really care for him anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought that scene was good and bad because I wish that Bella had the chance to understand crime and dishonesty, because throughout the movie she never got to experience that. Because the movie is supposed to show her going through all the human emotions and all the things that are in society, but she never got to experience theft or stealing. Like I wish they showed like the two guys being brought forward, like these guys tried to run away with your money, and then her trying to understand the idea of crime. You get what I'm saying? But I know that that couldn't happen because the story needed to move forward and losing the money was important. But I just wish that was put in there too, because that's never talked about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with crime, you also experience shame and guilt, and I don't think we really see Bella feeling those emotions because she's just very unapologetic.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. But it was very funny how before Duncan lost all of his money, he was speaking like a gentleman. He was very loquacious with his words, very elegant. And then after he loses his money, every third word is "fuck, fuck, fuck you, you wench." It's which I think is another part of class. Like language and class are intertwined. And so when Duncan loses his money, he becomes a lower class person and starts using swear words and things like that. Because before that in the movie, there's hardly any cursing.
Yeah, yeah, and Bella stays the same, like in terms of her mannerism,
Yeah, she says
really.
money is a curse.
Yeah. But yeah, so after that, they get dropped off in Paris, and it's like winter, it's snowing, and they don't have anything to eat, anywhere to stay. And Bella and Duncan is once again angry, telling her like, what the hell are we going to do? And Bella kind of approaches this whole thing like an experiment, just like Godwin. And she says like, okay, like we can see if we can survive without money,
Mm,
let's make this into an experiment.
mm,
And she goes around, and she ends up like in front of a brothel, and she's talking to this lady, and this lady is like, oh, like, you give me 10 francs and you charge men 30 francs, and you'll make money if you want to do that. And she's like, oh, people are going to pay me for this, yay. And so like she goes in with the first guy that comes up, and she realizes that not all sex is fun,
mm.
because the man like comes in like 3 strokes or something. And yeah, she doesn't really enjoy it, but she does end up getting the money. And she goes back to Duncan, but Duncan is like learned that she was whoring herself, so he like doesn't want to take the money that she has. And she's disgusted by her, and she's like, this is like, whoring is the worst thing you can do, why did you do this, and all of those things. And Bella is telling what she did, like she's proud of it.
Mm, mm.
What
Which
did you think?
which I thought was interesting, because she you know she's introduced now to sex work, which I think could be also a part of understanding the crime part, but also another part of femininity that's different than masculinity, right? Like all women at a certain time could take that opportunity to make ends meet, right? Whether for good or for bad, whether that be a choice that they willingly make without coercion, or unfortunately sometimes with coercion. And to see that. That's the way like she gets introduced to it, and the way they sort of like kind of glamorize it, because a brothel is like it's very baroque, very aristocratic, very gaudy, and like all the whores there are like decent looking girls and stuff like that. It's very interesting how they sort of brought that into the fray.
Yeah, I think, and I like that description, because most of the time sex work is seen as like, a bad thing. But when we look at the reality, or how come sex work started, it's for men, for men's pleasure, and women being exploited through giving men pleasure.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's like, him, what was his name? Duncan was probably in a lot of brothels, in and out of a lot of chicks,
Right.
but he describes like whoring as like the worst thing a woman can do
Hmm.
when it's for men. So I feel like the movie does a good job of not like making sex work look bad, and
Hmm.
also like kind of making us understand this irony that the world has about sex world,
I would disagree with the idea the movie doesn't make sex work look bad, because there are sex acts that Bella is forced to do that she doesn't like, men she has to lay with she doesn't like, and also the madam of the house is violent towards Bella. It's like she bites her earlobes and then bites her on the belly and, like, I think sexually assaults her too. And they sort of cut that scene out. When the girl comes into the room and starts biting on her. But yeah, I disagree with that, and I do think when Duncan said that whoring yourself out is one of the worst things that women can do, I do think there is some truth in that, because the same is also true for men. Being a gigolo, or being a, as women say nowadays, incorrectly using the term fuckboy, there is some truth to that. Being promiscuous, especially as a profession, is one of the worst things you could do. I would agree somewhat with Duncan.
I think the only bad thing about sex work is that it's being dangerous because of STDs and stuff like that, or abuse or murder that a woman can go through, or a man if he's a male prostitute. But I don't believe that being promiscuous and stuff like that is bad. Like the way that prostitution is now is bad in its essence, because it was created by men for men once again. So how come like it's going to be blamed mostly on women and seen as the worst thing that we can do when it's there for your need, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. Like it's like saying that it's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but maybe it's
If
like fast food. Like fast food is there, it's cheap, it's fast, it probably like feeds a lot of people around the world who might not be able to get healthier meals and stuff like that, but it's also bad for you.
It's like drugs. Of course, cocaine, heroin, these are bad things, but people still want them, and somebody will fill the demand. But it is still a very bad thing to do. Drug dealing of any kind is horrible.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, with drugs, both men and women are exploited. Both men and women create drugs. Both men and women take drugs. But with prostitution, it's most of the time men creating it and then women being submissive to it.
right. Well, we have a natural desire to want to have sex that's programmed into human beings. Being addicted to cocaine or heroin or nicotine or caffeine is a learned habit and trait that we sort of pick up through society or time or through action. So saying it's men's fault, that's like saying, it's your fault that you are obese because you're hungry, right? And you can't control your appetite or something like that. Like, nobody would really say all of that. Like, we have a natural desire and need to eat and to have sex and sleep and that sort of stuff.
I don't think prostitution is born from a natural desire, because you can have sex outside of prostitution. So you don't really need it. I feel like it's more of a greedy thing, because men can have sex normally. Men can have prostitution, and also like there's rape. So it's like how much do you need?
Okay, all right, but it's not only about having sex in and of itself. It's about having sex with certain types of people. Actually, you can get dick from a lot of people, but do you want to get it from everybody? No. And does a man want to get pussy from every single woman? No. You want to sleep with many different types of women, as some men are inclined to do. So that's why the whorehouse would exist. So the woman who normally would not look at you, or the woman who would be disgusted by you, has no choice but to sleep with you.
Exactly. So it's like it comes from greed. Like you want to try every dish on the planet.
So are
So
you being greedy by saying, I don't want to sleep with you guy, I want to sleep with that other guy?
no, that's
No.
my personal preference. But I
Okay.
don't exploit anyone to do that.
You don't exploit people to do that, no. But that would be saying, okay, under capitalism, yes, prostitution is exploitation. So you're right on that. But the thing is, the man wants to be able to have options and choices with what he is doing. And
Yeah.
as men, we have much more limited choices than a woman who has wider choices. Most women are able to sleep with a wider swath of men than men in reverse for women.
I'm just gonna leave it at this. The great Mick Jagger once said, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try, you might find it's what you need." I don't know.
Wow.
It's not what you need. Sorry, you might find it's not what you need. But
Right.
yeah, like you can't get everything you want, but men most of the time do. So that's why there's prostitution, and that's all I'm saying.
Right. That, I mean, you keep on putting it on men, but if women didn't want money, or women didn't desire money so much, then there wouldn't be prostitution, because there should be some things where money is no motivator, as there is for some people.
And why are women in need of money? Because we are in need of financial freedom. And it's not as simple as, oh, if you don't want money, then don't be a prostitute. Sometimes it's the issue of life and death, or other things that the capitalist society puts on us, other
Right.
pressures. So it's not like just for the greedy money wanting thing that people become prostitutes for.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
I,
it's not like that, I
I
would
would
say.
argue this. I'm going to make my point clear. And I've told you this before. I do believe sex work should be legal. Prostitution should be legal. In fact, there should be state mandated whorehouses where basically all of the prostitutes of the country are hired by the government. No different than in France, where a good proportion of the doctors work for the government in the healthcare system or something like that. I think the same thing should be done there, so that way we can guarantee everybody gets health checks, safety, the facilities are clean and up to standard and par. That's my thing. But we have to be honest about how society will view it. And in society, there is a stigma attached to sex work. Could that stigma change? Yes. Especially now with like contraceptives, where one of the biggest problems of sex work is that a woman could give birth to a child and not know the paternity of that child, and that child could then go off to, have incestuous relationships with people in society. This is one of the reasons why we have, constantly throughout history tried to control women's sexuality and also tried to enforce monogamy in different societies. But overall, if in this day and age, I do think it should be legal. But in truth, society will still always have a negative view of the prostitute and street worker for the time being.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a something that has been developing for centuries. That like anything related to sex is a taboo, so therefore prostitution is a taboo. Like the sex work is taboo, so that's understandable. But I do agree with you on that.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
agree pouring yourself out is the worst thing a woman can do. Thank you. Now
No, I
moving on to
don't
the
agree
story.
to that. I agree to like sex work being legal.
Mhm.
Anyway, so moving on into the story. Um, so we before Bella leaves the house, we see Godwin putting something in her jacket and then sewing it in. And basically, we find out that it was money, and Bella takes that money out and shows it to like Duncan. And Duncan says like, "Wait, you had this money all this time?" And once again, we see like how Bella is trying to experiment just for the fun of it. And yeah, so then Duncan is now like just angry at her because she hoard herself, and he takes the money and goes away. And now Bella doesn't have any money, so she goes back to the brothel and starts working there, and she starts like having sex with clients and et cetera, et cetera. And what happens is that when a guy comes in, they all line up. And one time, like this guy that's very ugly comes in, and he chooses Bella. And Bella is like, what if we choose the clients? What if we say that we want to have sex with them? Wouldn't that be better? Because then it would be like more passionate. And that's when like the mama of the house, the brothel